Oh my gosh, guys. There's about 30 bass right here in the shallows. Oh my gosh. Oh, the swiped at it. There we go. There we go. There we go. Another one. Even with the freezing cold temps, guys, they are absolutely crushing that jerkbait. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Aaron, and thank you all so much for checking out the channel. Today, I'm bringing you guys a full jerkbait tutorial. Now, the jerkbait is the best winter lure when it comes to power fishing, but it's the last lure that most anglers master. Well, today, I'm going to cut your learning time in half. I'm going to go through the rods, the reels, the lures, and even the little extra tidbits that you need to know to make yourself a proficient winter jerkbait fisherman. Let's start off with the small things that are going to make you successful when it comes to jerkbait fishing. The number one thing in winter fishing is going to be comfortability. So these are a pair of glacier gloves. You're going to need a pair of comfortable gloves. And when we go out in the water today, you guys are going to see how bundled up I am. You have to be comfortable, because if you're not comfortable, you're not going to fish well. The next thing we're going to talk about is hooks. When it comes to the Vision 110, which is my primary winter fishing bait, the stock hooks are very, very poor. I like to upgrade the hooks to size 6 Aaron Martin Nano Finesse treble hooks. And in order to upgrade the hooks, you are also going to need split ring pliers as well too. Last but not least, I'm going to show you guys the secret sauce when it comes to jerkbait fishing, and that's actually going to be this, which is soldering wire. Now, this soldering wire is a 0.06 millimeter. It's 100 grams. It's a pretty light wire. The reason why soldering wire is so important when it comes to jerkbait fishing is your jerkbait is going to do one of three things. It's going to float, it's going to suspend, or it's going to sink. During the winter, we're going to get all kinds of fluctuation when it comes to temperature. So if it's unseasonably warm, I like a slow float on my jerkbait. If it's normal winter temperatures, I like for it to suspend. Or if it's unseasonably cold, like it is today, I want that slow sink to imitate a dying bait fish. So with the small stuff out of the way, let's take a look at the lures and the equipment that I'm fishing on. My number one rod when it comes to winter jerkbait fishing is the Shimano X-Pride 610 medium. This rod is the gold standard in jerkbait fishing. If you guys watch tactical bassing at all, I'm sure you guys have seen it in the past. This one is actually a 2-piece rod, but I have a 1-piece rod as well too. There is a debate online between spinning gear versus casting gear. I think you can go either way. I don't really think it matters. The only time when it's more advantageous to use spinning gear is if you need to get that jerkbait as deep as possible. With spinning gear, you're going to be able to get a further cast, which means you're going to be able to get that jerkbait down a little bit deeper than you would on casting gear. For the bait I'm going to be fishing on this rod, I have a Vision 110. I'm going to have a Vision 110 on all of the rods. This one has a little bit more shiny finish. When it comes to color is not that big of a deal. What you're looking for is the finish itself. You have a clear finish, you have a matte finish, or you have a shiny finish. There's different times to fish these. I typically prefer a more shiny finish with cloud cover, a more clear finish when there's less cloud cover, and a matte finish when the water is a little bit more stained. For the line on these, I'm always going to be using 8 to 10 pound test. 10 pound test if I want to keep it a little bit higher in the water column, 8 pound test if I need maximum depth out of that jerkbait. And then when it comes to reel, I'm always going to be using a 7-to-1 gear ratio reel. Obviously, if it's a spinning reel, it's going to be a little bit slower. Next up, we have another Shimano X-Pride 6/8 medium. Like I said, guys, gold standard when it comes to jerkbait fishing rods. Also really good for other things as well too, especially topwater baits, shaky heads as well. So there's a lot of different uses for this rod. It's definitely not a cheap rod, but if you can get your hands on one, it's a very versatile rod, very sensitive and very light. Great quality. For the bait on this one, I have the Vision 110 Plus one. So this one's going to have a longer bill and dive a little bit deeper than that regular Vision 110. I have this one in the gill color, which is going to be a matte finish. And because I have that 110 Plus one, I'm going to be using an 8-pound test on this one to get it a little bit deeper than that regular Vision 110. Next up, I have a brand new rod that I bought last year. This is a Daiwa Tatula Elite. It's a medium light rod, and it's in between that medium X-Pride and a BFS rod basically. And what that allows me to do is that allows me to fish a little bit smaller jerkbait than I normally would. So this is actually a Vision 110 Junior right here. And this is more of a matte color as well too. It almost looks translucent, but it's more of a matte finish. Because this rod is so light, it actually doesn't handle the regular Vision 110 very well. I'm sure you could get away with fishing on it,
but it's much more suitable for those junior lures. And I'm excited to try this out today. I haven't had too much luck on the junior so far, but the lake we're going to is very, very good for jerkbait fishing. So we're gonna see if we can't get a couple bites on that junior lure. And last but not least, we have a Shimano X Pride. This is a 6'8" spinning rod in medium. And on this one, I have a Vision 110 Plus 2, which is gonna be the deepest diving bait offered in the series. More of a shiny color, but it does have some translucent there as well too. Typically, you don't really need to go with a Vision 110 Plus 2, so it's not something I would run out and buy. It's a very situational lure, but I wanted to finish off with the Vision 110 Plus 2 today, get it as deep as we possibly can, and that's why I have it on spinning rod with 8-pound test. Now that you see my preferred lures and combos, let's go hit the water and let me show you guys exactly how to fish the jerkbait.
Guys, let's get it started here. Now, when I start off wild jerkbait fishing, I typically like to go with a more shallow jerkbait first. So, especially at this lake, I'm always gonna start off with a more shallow jerkbait and then work my way a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. All right, guys, so we're gonna launch her out there, give it a few reels to get down to depth. Then we're always gonna strike the jerkbait on slack line. We're never, ever, ever gonna slack it on a tight line. So what I want you to do is I want you to do the same cadence each time. I want you to go boom, boom, boom. So it's a 3 cadence. 1, 2, 3. The most important tip I've ever learned while fishing the jerkbait is to really watch for that vibration in the end of your rod. So when you hit that slack line, you'll watch that rod vibrate on the end here, and that's how you know you got a good strike. Now, in terms of how we can fish this, we can do a couple different things. With the smaller bill lips, like this Megabass Vision 110, the regular one, we can hit it hard or we can hit it soft. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start off with hard strikes, and then I'm gonna get into some soft strikes. So I'm gonna cast it out there, keep our same cadence. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So I'm getting it those pretty hard strikes. Always watching that rod vibrate at the end, and you'll feel it in your hand as well too. And as you get into the Vision 110 Plus 1, those bigger bill lips, you're actually not going to be able to strike it very hard. Or I should say, you shouldn't strike it very hard if you want the best action. As you get deeper in the winter, you're going to have longer pauses. So I typically will start off with about 3-second pauses. Usually if it's colder like this, I would pause a little bit longer, but I'm going to start off with 3-second pauses and work my way to 5 seconds, 8 seconds, 10 seconds if I don't get bit. I typically don't go longer than 10 seconds, although some people will let it sit for a minute or two. So it's really just your personal preference and your fishing style. Now, the perfect conditions for jerkbaits are cloudy skies with a breeze. You want some chop on the water. So right now we have sunny skies and not much breeze, so it's not ideal. We are supposed to have some cloud cover here in the next hour or two, but if you're looking for ideal conditions, you definitely want cloud cover and wind. Now that I've showed you guys how to strike it hard, I'm gonna show you guys what's more preferred in the winter, and that's gonna be a soft strike. So with that, you're doing the exact same thing. You're just striking more gently. You're still gonna feel that vibration in your rod. Right now, we're letting it set for about 3 seconds at a time. But if we don't get bit here in the next couple minutes, we're gonna slow it down. The colder the air temperatures get, typically the deeper the bass will sit. So if we had some unseasonably warm days, the bass might creep up a little bit in the shallows. It's been very, very cold, as you guys can tell by the ice in the middle of the lake. So most likely they're sitting a little bit deeper. So I think as we get into our deeper diving jerkbaits, we're gonna see a little bit more success. But typically we can pick 1 or 2 off, even with this more shallow diving jerkbait, because they will come up 2, 4, 6 feet in order to eat it. Letting it sit for about 5 seconds now instead of 3 seconds. Always watch that line, because most of the time with the jerkbait, you're gonna see it before you feel it. In terms of how I have my drag set, I have my drag fairly tight. For me, the only thing I don't want to happen is break the fish off as soon as I set the hook. And you'll see when we set the hook, it's not a giant hook set, it's more pulling into the fish. But the one thing we don't want to happen is we do not want to break off the fish. And then I prefer to thumb drag it after I have the fish hooked. That's just my preference, but you just want to make sure to set your drag to where you're not going to break off the fish. Remember, we're using 8 or 10 pound tests, so we're not going to horse these fish in. We're going to play the fish more to get them on the bank or in the net. As you guys can see, this breeze is picking up on the water. So for the jerkbait bite, that's exactly what we want. We want that breeze on the water. Hopefully that'll lend itself to some fish getting a little bit more aggressive. Again, letting it sit for about 5 seconds right now. If we don't get bit, we'll switch it to 8 seconds. Sometimes it's the color, sometimes it's the conditions, sometimes it's how long you sit. You really have to experiment around with it to figure out what it is that's going to trigger that bite. Switch over to a white color here. This is my favorite color right here. French Pearl US. It was hiding when I was tying on my baits, or I would have tied on this one first. If you're gonna buy one color, this is my recommended color. Even if you don't have shad in your lake, it's by far the #1 color in my opinion. All right, a little color change up here. See if this makes a difference. Water is still not as much chop as I'd like, but that's okay. Oh, I can really see this guy in the water. Try a different angle over here real quick. Oh my gosh, guys. There's about 30 bass right here in the shallows. Oh my gosh. Oh, the swipe at it. This is crazy. Wow. I literally see them all. Less than 30-degree high today. And you have all these bass right up here in the shallows. Absolutely nuts. Go. Oh, this is wild, guys. I'm sight fishing with a jerkbait. Oh my goodness. And that's usually why I start casting shallow before I cast deep. But the crazy thing is, I casted over here a couple times. Now maybe they're not in the feeding mood. Maybe that weather's got to change a little bit, but they're all over here. Cast at this different angle here. There we go. There we go, guys. Got one. There we go. First one of the day. So I went over there to switch up my angle. Ended up getting the first one of the day here. Cute little bass on that White Vision 110, that French Pearl US. All right, cute little bass there. See if we can catch another one. It is time for me to change to the junior. So normally if I just got a bite, I would definitely stick with this white jerkbait. But what I'm trying to do is I'm gonna rotate through these lures about 30 minutes each so you guys can see how to fish them. So the next one I'm gonna fish is the 110+1 Junior. If you take a look at the lure itself, it does have a little bit bigger bill. So that means that we cannot strike it quite as hard as we can the regular Vision 110. And I'm gonna go down here at that same angle we were just at and try to fish this guy for about 30 minutes. See if we can't get a bite or two out of that. Reel it down there. This rod is so nice for jerk baits. Wish it worked for the bigger jerk baits. It's got a short handle, which works really well. Not a long rod, so I can work in this small area here. And the next hook set, I really want you guys to pay attention. I'm not yamming the hook when I set it. It's much more of a kind of a sweep into the fish. Speaking of, I need to check my drag. It was not set whatsoever. But I really want you to pay attention to that hook set on the next fish we catch. There we go. Another one, guys. Here we go. We are out here, less than freezing today is the high, and we're catching bass on a jerkbait. Not only are we catching bass, we've caught multiple bass so far. Let's get him back in. All right, number 2. It's a good sign. Cast it out here again and show you guys what I'm doing. Launch it out there, reel it down. 1, 2, 3. Giving it about 5 seconds in between each cadence. 1, 2, 3. Wind's picking up a little bit, that's good. Still wish that cloud cover would come in, but we're catching fish, guys. Sunny, freezing cold temps. We're out here catching fish. There we go. Another one. I think they're shrinking on me. There we go. Swiped that. All right, number 3. And the really, really important thing to bring with you is pliers. And I do have pliers in case things get a little hairy, but you always, always, always want to bring pliers with you. It's one thing I should have mentioned at the very beginning of the video, because especially with these gloves, those jerk baits are hard to get out of this fish. And if you catch a big one and it swallows it, you want to be sure to get it out as quickly as you can. All right, let's go. All right. First time I've really caught fish on the 110+1 Junior, and it's putting in some work, guys. Smaller profile. Oh, gosh, dang it. Smaller profile. We got that wind on the water. Ooh. See if this bite picks up a little bit. Really, really light strikes. Again, when I set the hook, I'm sweeping into it. It's a pretty quick sweep. Definitely not going slow, but I'm sweeping into it. I'm not jacking the hook, watching my line so that way I can see it before I feel it. Our guides are freezing up a little bit, but that's okay. Now there are other lures you can use besides the Vision 110. So a shadow wrap is a pretty good one. A shadow wrap is a lure that I'll throw here and there, but from what I found, the Vision 110, the Vision 110+1, those are your go-to jerk baits in the winter. They are very expensive. They're about $25 a piece. So if it breaks the budget, go with something less expensive. There's nothing wrong with that. But I will tell you that if you want to catch fish, the Vision 110 is the way to go. There we go, guys. Go. Oh! Lost it and possibly my jerkbait. I think I got my jerkbait back. Come on. There we go. All right, last cast with the Junior. We're gonna break out the regular +1, see if we can't get a few more on that. All right, let's pull out the regular Vision 110+1. So we have our Vision 110+1, have that in the gill color. See if I can show that to you guys. Again, longer bill, so we're gonna do softer strikes. Typically I use this non-translucent matte finish for more of darker days or cloudy water, but I'm gonna toss it around a little bit, see if we can't get bit on it. 1, 2, 3. Rod's going back to center every single time. Gonna give it about 5 seconds in between each set of strikes. 1, 2, 3. In between each few strikes, I'm reeling up a little bit of line, so I'll show you guys what that looks like. Cast it out there, reel it down. 1, 2, half turn, 3, half turn. 1, 2, half turn, 3, half turn. 1, 2, half turn, 3, half turn. Again, always striking on that slack line, always getting that vibration and then your rod that you can feel and see. That's what you want every single time. All right, let's switch over to the 110+2. I don't think I'm gonna have as much success on that, but what I wanna do is show you guys how to work it at least. And then I wanna go back to the more shallow diving jerkbait to end out our day. All right, so we have that Vision 110+2. Very, very, very distinctive, very large bill here. So again, we cannot hit that bait too hard. We have to be very, very gentle with this. Again, if you're throwing a +2, it's most likely because you want it to get very deep. So I would recommend a spinning rod for that. The reason for it is you can launch it further on a spinning rod than you can casting gear, which just means you can get a little bit lower. That's really the only differentiating factor between a spinning rod versus casting gear. Cast it out there. Get it down to depth. Again, always hitting on slack line. I'm just hitting little hits when I hit it. Nothing large there. But another retrieve you can do, cast it out there, especially on these 110+1s or these 110+2s, is you can pull it just a little bit. So you'll feel that wiggle and let it go. Pull it, let it go. So that's a different look than a jerk, 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 more erratic motion. That's more of a crankbait, tight little wobble, and then it suspends. Still letting it sit for about 5 to 8 seconds. Give it a little tug. The problem with this bait in this pond is the depth I'm fishing maxes out at about 15 to 20 feet, but more realistically 15 feet. And this guy dives all the way from 10 to 12 feet. So I'm getting this down to depth, especially with a long cast. And the fish might be on bottom, but more than likely the fish are going to be suspending, and you always want to keep that jerkbait above their heads. So if I'm fishing it below them or at their level, that is going to be less likely for me to get a bite. So I don't typically use the 110+2 a lot in this specific lake, and the reason for that is because of depth. But if your lake is a lot deeper, say you're fishing for bass in 20 or 30 feet, the Vision 110+2 might be a good selection for you. So a couple more casts here. See if we can't get at least one on the spinning rod. Then we'll go back to our Vision 110, go back to our casting gear. Grass. Big old chunk of grass. Yeah, guys, see that's the problem right there. It's getting a little bit too deep. So that clump of grass is a sign that it's time to put away the Vision 110+1. Let's head back to our regular Vision 110 and see if we can pick off a few more bass before our time's up here. There we go. All right, switch back to the regular Vision 110. Got a taker here. I believe that's number 4 on the day with one that we lost. So even with the freezing cold temps, guys, they're absolutely crushing that jerkbait. Wind picked up just a hair. Was enough for this guy to take a swipe at it. Let's get him back.
All right, guys, that is going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for watching to the very end. I greatly appreciate it. And for those of you who are still here, I have a huge tip for you. And I know I've been teasing it all video long, but here it is. The way you find good lakes or ponds to fish in the winter, jerkbait fishing, or really just any lake or pond to fish, is you want to look for a pond that has a spring in it. Now, how do you tell if a pond has a spring in it or if it doesn't? Well, this pond in particular has a dam that is constantly overflowing. So if you have a pond or a lake, there are no rivers or streams that are running to it, and it has a dam that's constantly overflowing, most likely that area has a spring in it. And that warm water spring will keep this lake warmer than any of the other lakes around here. So I know in the winter, whenever I want to catch fish, I come to a body of water that has a warm spring in it. I believe it's in the section I was fishing down there in that deeper hole. I'm not exactly sure, but what I do know is if you find that lake or you find that pond that has a spring in it, you're going to catch bass, especially if you throw that jerkbait. Let's go ahead and recap the tips that I've given you throughout the video. So number 1, anytime you're winter fishing, you have to be warm. I was almost too hot today. I was practically sweating with all my hunting clothes on, but I'd rather be too hot than too cold. And those Glacier gloves, they're absolutely excellent. I definitely recommend it to anyone who wants to go out and fish during the winter. When it comes to the jerkbaits I fish in the winter, Vision 110, Vision 110+1, and that Vision 110 Junior was pretty good. Those are my 3 go-tos. You can fish a shadow wrap. There are other things you can fish, but those are my go-tos when it comes to catching bass. In terms of the buoyancy of the bait, when it's a little bit warmer outside, I like a slow float. When it's cold or normal temperatures outside, I like a suspend. Or if it's extra cold, I like that slow sink. I highly recommend replacing the hooks that come with the standard Megabass Vision 110. They are not very good. The Aaron Martin Nano Finesse trebles in size 6 are my go-to. I recommend 8 to 10 pound fluorocarbon depending on what depth you want on a medium action rod. Again, I just want to say a special thank you for those of you guys who made it to the end of the video. If you enjoy this type of content, please subscribe, please like, and please comment. It really encourages me to keep making videos for you guys, which I really enjoy. But that's going to wrap the video for today. Get you a jerkbait, find you a good pond or lake, go out there, toss it around, and who knows, you could catch your PB in January or February. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.